All right. I do believe we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching this from today. My name is DJ Eshelman, and this is the 11 Talents broadcast. I need a more clever way to introduce all this, but hey, you know what? I'm getting the coffee in, even though it's noon here in Franklin, Tennessee, where I'm at. But at the same time, it's just been one of those uh, nights where the kiddies just kind of keep you up too late and then wake you up too early and kind of feeling a little bleary eyed as a result. So bear with me. But nonetheless, glad to have you here with me today. And the 11 Talents broadcast, if you don't know, is focused on a vision I had a while ago and just working through a time of fasting and really saw the parable of talents in a whole new way and realized that one of the things we really want to be setting up in our lives is getting to the place of being the person that was given 5 talents, made that into 10, and then was actually given responsibility over yet another one. And so having that level of stewardship in our lives is really the goal. And so that's why I decided to call this 11 Talents. And funny thing is, I actually am working on website and things like that, just to get this all launched. But I figured, you know what? Why not just go and start having the conversations now? And so that's why I'm doing these broadcasts, even though I'm not really promoting them. So I don't really have a lot of people joining me live, but if you do, great. But I am making it a goal to go live in some sort of way, shape, or form every single workday. And so on Mondays, I do have a focused on newpreneurs, newer entrepreneurs. I just call them newpreneurs just because it's kind of fun. And so that's the tips, and I try to keep that under 10 minutes. So if you are a new entrepreneur, join me on Monday evenings. That time might fluctuate, but we'll see. And then on Tuesdays, a little bit of fun for a little more seasoned entrepreneurs and those that have tried out a bunch of different things and maybe one thing worked, didn't thing work, other things didn't work, and things like that. So that is what I call being a squirrelpreneur. And so we have squirrelpreneur stories on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays, currently, like today, is the 11 Talents broadcast, which is very much focused on Christian entrepreneurs and growing your endeavors that way. And I apologize, I'm trying to log into something here, and you know, it's giving me fits, as technology sometimes does. But trying to get access to my notes so I can actually get through today's talk. So I'm kind of vamping along the way here. So hopefully forgive me for that. And of course, they're not there. So let's see here. Fun times ahead. So it is the start of the Lent season. So this is, as I'm recording this, February 27th. Oh my goodness. February 17th, 2021, which is Ash Wednesday. And I don't have any ash on my forehead. I'm not currently part of a church that does that tradition, although I used to be. I used to be actually. It's kind of funny. I'm kind of a church mutt. I was actually initially baptized, I believe, Lutheran, and then went to a Calvary Chapel when I was much younger, young, and that's where I really got a relationship with God, and really accepted Jesus for the first time personally, and was baptized in a freezing cold lake just north of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and actually went through a Lutheran school in 4th grade, and then went to we moved, and there was no Lutheran or anything down there in this little town called Penrose where we lived. And actually we tried some churches, liked the Presbyterian church that was there, and so became a Presbyterian church, it's part of the Presbyterian church. And actually Actually served as an elder at one point in the Presbyterian church there. That tells you how small they were, that they had some kid like me serving as an elder, but that was a good a good point of guidance. And so, but eventually I did leave the Presbyterian church and have been independent since then. So yeah, so no ash, and even though I really couldn't get out today anyway, let's show you why here. This is unusual for our area uh, to have this white stuff on the ground we call snow. So this is also what you can't see under that is a bunch of ice that makes it very, very difficult to live. Oh, hey, I think I've got some kids playing in the backyard area there. That's kind of cool. But anyway, that's why I don't have any of that. But I did want to begin talking about the Lent season and what I'm doing during this. One of the things that has been on my heart, and when I say on my heart, I mean this in kind of what I call the Jeremiah way. And what that means is that sometimes you have something that's going on and something a thought that you can't get out of your head. That's one thing. But for me, there are times when I try to actively run away from something and I say, you know what, that's not me. I'll just do that, another time, or I don't really feel like that's my mission, whatever. And then it just starts burning inside of me. And so with Jeremiah, they were like, Jeremiah, shut up. We don't want to hear it. And Jeremiah said, if I don't tell you this, it'll burn within me. And I don't, I don't want to burn. So I'm going to tell you. That's the kind of burden that this has become. So that burden is about the connection between fasting and running a business, which sounds really strange, but to a lot of people, that might make a lot of sense. And so I want to spend this time period of Lent focused completely on this. And so focused, in fact, that my goal is to get a chapter of a book written every single day. And so basically 40 chapters chapters might not be the best way to say it. I'm just going to call it days in the book. It'll be a guide to fasting, because I've come to realize that a lot of people that are even if they're Christians, been Christians all their life, or whatever, many of us don't know how to fast. Some of us don't know why to fast. Sometimes it just seems like something that maybe they did back in previous days, but it's not valid for today. I've heard a lot of these kind of things, and if you have a conception about fasting that you either have or would like to challenge, feel free to put that into the comments, and I'll read that and see what you got going on. But honestly, I think fasting is more important than we sometimes realize that it is, and not just for the usual reasons that the people say, but there is a little bit of a selfish aspect to this as well. There's something that is promised out of that, and there's a power that comes with this, and that power of discernment. But this was also something that, in terms of the apostles being sent out and finding they couldn't cast out demons, of certain demons, and the instruction that Jesus had was prayer and fasting. It's the only way you can get rid of these. Now that is a fascinating response. It's like, wait a minute, what would have, denying yourself food, making yourself weak? How would that have any impact on casting out demons? Well, if there's too much of us, what room is left for God to work? And so I think there's a fascinating connection there. And a lot of times in our businesses, now, whether you're starting out or you're seasoned at this, it really doesn't matter. A lot of times when we're running a business, we get so caught up in everything that's going on that we forget about what we should be doing and how we're honoring God. And this has been a challenge for me. I tend to be a person that gets up and goes, and sometimes I'll sleep in too much and then end up going. It's a reality that I have in my life, unfortunately. But what I'm finding is that if I take more time to structure and do prayer and fasting, then I'm much more likely to have that time of focus and less time of just all the noise. And so during this Lent season, what I'm encouraging people to do, especially entrepreneurs, is to try fasting, sometimes for the first time. So the way I'm structuring this and the way the guide will be structured, and I need to back up a second. Let me put this up on the screen. I know it's in the description as well, but there's actually a email page, or a page you can go to actually sign up for me sending you these emails every day that'll have these chapters. I'm working on a different venue. This wasn't my original intention. My original intention was to have an actual page to go to where, the lessons would be. But we had some technical challenges. And so I had to kind of punt and say, you know what, I need some place for people to land so I can interact with them. So there's a link on the screen here and it's in the description. I'll update that later as we get the other thing going. But this for now is what it's going to be. I'll just be emailing out a lesson every day, something for you to reflect on and that sort of thing. So what we're starting with during our 40 days process is actually learning more about fasting itself. And so, yeah, wow. Sorry, there it is. I'm not a Mac guy. And so this whole iPad thing, the interface is, you know, not actually easy for me as people always assume, oh, it's so easy. And this has not been easy for me to learn. So I managed to take notes on this to try and learn, and then I'm trying to pull them up, but I apologize. So here's my process for learning how to fast and to take fasting on as a busy business person. First of all is to learn more about fasting so you can make a good choice on how to approach your fasting time. And a lot of people, like I said, they just don't know what fasting actually is or could be. So they might have some conceptions about that. And so our first goal in the first 10 days is to go over, okay, what fasting actually is, which is, things that I'm going to talk about in a little bit here. Then we go through, what types of fasting could you do? There's lots of different options. And so I want to make sure that we be practical about that and say that there's not just one way to fast. There's lots of different ways to approach this. And then what to expect when you're fasting, especially if you choose the method that I use, which I actually do encourage, even though I'm certainly not a doctor and I don't want to make those kind of decisions for you. I'll always say, get medical advice before you do something, somewhat drastic like this. But I know that my path works well for me, especially when I'm very busy and need to keep my mind engaged. There's ways you can approach that are still fasting, but it's not as difficult to get through in terms of your energy level and things like that. It's still a challenge. Don't get me wrong. You always want to have that notion of depending on God instead of depending on your own will. And that's so we always want to get to that level of challenge where if we see we're just surviving on our own willpower, there's always another step to take. So that's an aside. But choosing your path to fasting is day 4. And so you can see that in my kind of process here, we don't want to rush things. We want to actually make good decisions. And so day number 4 is actually choosing your pathway. And then one of the things that I want people to embrace is something I've been talking a lot about. You'll hear me talk about frequently, and that is a kind of de-romanticizing achievement. It kind of sounds weird to say that, but in my life, I've realized, and I've looking at human nature and looking at the way that the world was designed, and in none of that do I see this romantic thing of, gosh, I went out there and I just did it. I just achieved it. It's never just that. Okay, that doesn't really happen. The saying I have is that you won't rise to the occasion. You will only rise to your level of preparedness. And so the key is raising that level of preparedness. Now, the key here with that is that it takes raising your amount of uncomfort. And I say for a very good reason. If you say discomfort, sometimes discomfort, that sounds like you're the victim of it. When it's uncomfort, that's you choosing. So little distinction, very small, I know, and I'm probably splitting hairs with that. but it's also, better branding. So uncomfort it is. But choosing that level of uncomfort and always just trying to challenge yourself to get up to a new level one step at a time is the concept. And so on day 5, I talk in more detail about the uncomfort principle and how to utilize that. And it's especially true in fasting. And so um, there's that. On day 6, we're going to talk about preparing for having lower energy. It's a reality of fasting. And especially as people that have a business or want to start one or have a job or whatever, we need to be aware of what's coming to us. And so again, it sets us up for success in doing the process. And so we're not, quitting midway through. We're not, blaming God for things that isn't appropriate, or whatever the things that I've heard over the years with fasting. Um, we're prepared for it, so we know what's coming. Um, on day 7, we're going to talk about preparing your family and the rest of your life for your time of fasting. Just realizing that what, there's going to be a few days in this process that my energy level and my responsiveness isn't going to be as good, and so we want to try and prepare for that as best as possible. Um, in fact, I I realized in the midst of doing this that my original schedule had things set up to where an ideal time frame was actually going to be to start on a Saturday and not a Wednesday. But I might be adjusting this as we go. So when I say these days, these are just the ones that I'm putting out there for lessons right now. I kind of reserve the right to change the order of these very much so. But on day 6, we're going to be talking about reducing temptations around the home and in our lives. And so uh, there's, especially if this is your first time doing any kind of significant fast, then we want to take as much of those temptations away as we can, and really making it easy on ourselves doesn't lessen what we're doing. It sometimes, like I said, we want to de-romanticize this sense of achievement or sense of fasting. We want to make it so that it's not about us. It's not about what we achieved. It's about God guiding us through a process and us making it to the other side with great attention and blessings. But that's me sounding flowery. But honestly, doing things that are practical, like removing temptations and having your family on board with you, and so that even if they're not fasting, they're sensitive to your needs and your process, so they're not being a distraction to you. And then on day, sorry, I said 6. I meant 7, 8. On day 9, we actually commit. We say this is the pathway we're going down, and we're going to be experiencing this. And so the pledge is actually not to make any dramatic changes until the end of the fast. In other words, you're not making any decisions. You're not really making any life-changing kind of things until after the fast is completed. That's another important thing that I've realized in my life, that things can feel like great convictions in the moment, but if they don't pass the test of time, so to say, they're not really all that good at convictions. So that's a big part of it. Um, Next, we on day 10, which is the last day of preparation, we start preparing a habit of prayer. And so this is something that, like I was saying earlier, is always a challenge for me. But that's making that a habit. So the habit becomes, and this is the one thing that I love the most, is I feel hungry. That's a signal for me to spend some time in prayer. And it's just one of those little things that works really well to increase our conversations with God. It's a cool little thing. And so we're going to be walking through, how to do things like that to create a habit of prayer and actually make it so that you're more conversational and less transactional. So when we begin the fast, my method of doing this is what I called tiered fasting. So we're always taking, if we our normal diet and consumption is here, we want to take things down at various tiers. And so if, like, we have food over here and beverages over here, so for example, then we take, maybe coffee out and alcohol out and things like that. And then we take, sugars out. And then we do so there's all these tiers that we're going through to reduce a level down to um, the goal is by, let me think about this, day 17 overall, to spend from days 17 to days 20 water only. And so I know that's scary for a lot of people, and appropriately so. Like I said, you should always seek medical advice of a professional before doing this. But I'm just telling you what works for me is to tear down to that point of being ready for water only. So you're not shocking the body into this. A lot of people do that. And you know what? Sometimes it works better for them. But in my experience, what usually ends up happening is the body feels a sudden panic of being into a state of what we call ketosis far too soon. It goes into that starvation mode. We're wired to find food. If we're not ready for it, then it becomes a shock to the system. And we're some people, if you're experienced at fasting, that's great. But I want to lead people that are, one step at a time here. And so that's the goal here. So we're stepping things down one step at a time. And so we start on that. But as far as lessons go, some of the themes we're going to be talking about during our lessoning, we're going to be, I kind of helped. I hope I chose easy topics that are okay to do with headaches. For example, those first few days, you'll experience headaches. If you're giving up things like coffee, giving up things like alcohol and sugars, those first few days can be a little rough. Now, this is why we don't do it all at once, is because experiencing that all at once can be just overwhelming. But that little bit of uncomfort is actually good. And so we just increase our incomfort by decreasing the things we're consuming. And so one of the key lessons that we get into is the concept of intercessory prayers, and actually truly asking God to intercede in our lives, and not just, like I said, be transactional, but be personal about that. And in our case, we're going to focus very much on our work, and asking God for guidance and direction in our work. On day 15, I'm going to get into the parable of talents, which what I talked about at the beginning of this broadcast, which is oh, I thought I had a graphic for that. I apologize. I don't. But it will be something where I'm going to go through a process of explaining the things that have been revealed to me about the parable of talents, and about the three servants that were involved. One that showed himself just to be a slave and just was given one talent and squandered that, and just kind of buried it and didn't take the opportunity to grow that at all. One servant that was given two and was able to grow that by watching what someone that was given 5 talents did. And that 5 talent servant became a 10 talent steward. He is something that's responsible for a great number of things, business ventures, all these things that are growing those investments all at the same time. And so there's a learning pattern there, and something that I believe can be modeled in business. So there's some powerful teachings there that I'm really looking forward to getting down on the page, and maybe even doing some videos on as well. But then we get into God's word about money. We have a modern culture that seems to be very confused about this currency. and so we're going to talk more about what wealth is, and how the wealthiest being ever views this, and how we should view it as stewards of said wealth and said abilities and talents. So that's going to be coming up around day 2021. We're going to talk about what the word has to say about investments, and some things that were revealed during my last fasting period that added on to what I was doing, and actually kind of became a bit of confusing things in my life. I actually kind of made me question a direction I was heading down in terms of what I see people doing as a squirrelpreneur, and what I've tried as I had this uh, thing last year where I was embracing the word and. In other words, I'm a coach who does books and courses and all these things. And as like I had all these ands that I was bringing to the table, and so that made it kind of good, but also kind of bad. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but tempering that with the length of time. In other words, we don't have to dive into everything at once, and we shouldn't. We should actually treat this as a more advanced path. In fact, one of the things about the parable of talents is that there's a huge length of time. That's why the master was so upset with the one talent slave, is that there was all this length of time, all the time to grow and use the talent's abilities and purpose that was given to him, but he didn't. He just buried it in the ground, and then called the master selfish and not deserving of other people's efforts. I'm jumping way ahead. Can you tell I get kind of passionate about this topic? Um, but we're going to talk about that. And then there's this great phrase when it comes to challenges, but also in success. And that phrase is, what does this make possible? And so we're going to talk about a concept of true charity and how being successful in business means you can be dramatically more generous. And there's a non-linear relationship that people sometimes don't realize with that people tend to think of, well, oh, yeah, I give 10% or whatever. And, so if I make more, I'm just giving 10%. But the reality is people that make more can comfortably give a lot more than 10%. And they do. And that percentage is not only a higher percentage, but higher value overall. However, higher amounts of currency are exchanged overall. And it's a fascinating thing that really is something I look forward to getting into. It puts a smile on my face every time I think about it. Every time I think of those kind of things that I've been able to do in my life, of being able to have successes that allow me to be giving more than 30% of my income without any pain whatsoever. That's fantastic, and so I want that for more people. And so that's something that's going to be talked about. And I know that's uncomfortable for a lot of people, but power through it with me. We'll be powering through a lot of things at this fast. And that's just one of them, is we're changing our mindset and our body at the same time. And that actually brings us into that last week of fasting. And I did this wrong. Actually, it's the day after that is when we're doing 3 days of water only for the beginners. There's an advanced track that I'll be kind of introducing at some point that'll have longer period of just water only. But I apologize. I misspoke on that. I can't read my own writing is what it really boils down to. But we're going to have a discussion around, does God want me to have a dream job? Is that a thing? We're going to talk about, taking thankfulness seriously and actually not just doing the hands in the pocket, thank you, but actually, the hands up in the air, thank you. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about whether the kind of the apostles example of having a day job and having a ministry at the same time, and talk about that a little bit. So to address that, we're also going to address just having a business in general that is maybe more than one thing going on at a given time that might still include a day job. So it's really just discerning whether that's going to be the right thing or not. But then we're going to start talking about getting into new business ventures or improving ones we're already doing by getting into 4 areas that I'm blatantly stealing from someone else. I'm just relabeling as kind of what I'm calling that area of slave labor, where it's just unfulfilling and not great stuff. And so any of the activities that we do in that we want to write those down so they can be avoided at all costs in our business. The second one is tasks, which I just say they're abilities. And these are just things that we just do. Um, Mostly, like people like myself, do them because they're either difficult to delegate or it's difficult to delegate, which is usually the case with me, that it's just difficult to delegate, not that it's something that couldn't be delegated. Um, the third thing we're going to talk about is those areas of talents. These are things that you have that other people have as talents as well, potentially, that are less rewarding. These are acts of service, and those sort of things that we do. It's typically where most people make their money. This is often referred to as the zone of excellence by like A. Hendricks and things like that. But I'm calling it that's where the talents really come in. These are abilities. But in our final area we want to hone in on is those things that we're uniquely called and qualified to do. Those gifts that we have, those stewardships, those passions. That's that zone we want to be in, so that we can lead from there and let other people use their gifts and abilities to support our overall efforts. And so um, that is actually what we're going to end our fasting on. And so by that point, we'll have tiered our way back up to full levels of our diet, and coffee is coming on day 31. So that will be tiered back up to that point of being able to handle things like that. But then we go into 10 days of planning. And there's a reason for this. The reason is that I have found during fasting that it's a period of asking and longing, but it's not always a period of answers. God doesn't always answer right away. A lot of times we're not ready for it. And so when we've returned to full energy, what I've found is that tends to be when major answers have come. Once I've spent that time and honored that commitment to fasting, it's after that when the answers usually come. And so I have 10 days of purposeful living in those answers, you know, fully believing that they're going to come, because they're going to come. I guarantee it. But we have to go through the process first. And so during that 10 days, we're actually going to start walking through planning a new venture, or deciding how to bolster the one we have now. We're going to live in those talents. We're going to live in those gifts, and we're going to actually put those forward into a way of serving. And so one of the first things we're going to do is ask ourselves, when it comes down to it, regardless of what I do today, what do other people say about me? As far as what do people ask me to do for them? What do they suggest that I should be doing? We're going to listen to others and discern that and put that against God's will and say, is that something that people just want me to do, or is that something that God has a hand in them saying that? And because that's my unique creation, and that's why they see me as regards. We're gonna walk through that a bit. Find what we call a USP, which usually stands for unique selling proposition. I like to say unique service proposition, just because I believe any business worth having focuses on serving others. That's what the purpose of the business is. Whether you're teaching, making a product, doesn't matter. If you're not serving someone else by it, then it becomes just simply transactional, and that's not. I can't lead you in that. I'm not good at that. I'm not going to be the best in like an e-commerce business or something like that. I'm really only going to be good with businesses that are going to be true service. Even if that is a physical product that serves people, that's great. But honestly, that attitude has to be there. It can't just be, I'm just doing this to make money. That's not going to work in our program, I'm afraid. But I'm going to help you through a process of defining goals in the business, of saying we're going to establish. It can vary, but for me, I have 5 pillars in the areas in which I do business, and so there are areas we can exist in those. And so I'm going to give you some examples of that, and and help you choose one. We always got to start building one at a time. So if you're making a building and there's pillar structures you have to put up, you just want to start with that first pillar first, and not try and build them all at the same time. You'll just waste your time. It'll be really difficult to get it done. So build your first pillar first. And yeah, I'm using a metaphor, but bear with me. We're going to talk about that first pillar and this whole entire structure being first a practice business. We're going to talk about, delaying our passions until we have a good notion of how business works and how you work within a business and the things that you're good at doing, not good at doing, things you need to delegate. We're going to learn all that first with a practice business first, and then go into our passions. And there's some very specific reasons for that. I was actually talking about last night in the Squirrelpreneur Stories broadcast. So check that out if you want to learn more about why I'm very passionate about that. But we're going to go through some lessons that I've learned from others that I'm going to teach then to you about choosing a good practice business and how that can be something that can still be fun, but not necessarily something that's your long-term vision, and how that can be very much okay. We're going to talk through your family and your business and the need to be communicative there and get their, not only their support, but also let them know how they can be supporting you properly. There's a lot of bad ways to do this, which is what most people do. And so we're going to try and avoid some of those pitfalls right out of the gate. You're never going to avoid all of them, by the way, but we are going to do that. We're going to talk more about the need for delegation. We're going to be talking about the concepts of passive versus active income, so you can make a good decision on how to structure these bits of your business to have a blend there. We're going to actually talk about my cycle of sometimes I used to call it like the training cycle, or a business acquisition cycle. There's a lot of different things. I'm sure, by day 39, when we do this, I'll have a much better name for it. But there's a cycle that I believe that all significant businesses run through. It's simple. It's really just 3 or 4 steps that really, if you focus in on that, and it's something that's going to set up for more than just a day worth of lesson on this. By the way, this is something that I very much, depending on how well people are resonating, I'll get into teaching this a lot more detail. But for at least that one day, I want to at least introduce the concept, kind of whet your appetite a little bit, and then we're going to walk through creating a 90-day plan for your practice business, and actually committing to that being something you're going to do, and taking a pledge that you will not become a squirrelpreneur during that time. Not choose more than one thing to learn. You will not choose more than one thing to do. You're going to stick to it, and you're going to find the same kind of things that I found, is that if you just stick to one thing and do that thing really well before you do anything else, that actually becomes what success looks like. And so, I know I'm one of the only people out there truly saying that, but hopefully we can get some more actually living in that reality, that you don't need to buy every product out there. You don't need to get every single educational product out there. Just don't. So that's what's going on for the next 40 days. Whew, look at that. I got through that in exactly 40 minutes. 40 days described in 40 minutes. Woo! That's not really much of an achievement. But as you can see, this really is not necessarily about ministry or anything like that. It's not about outreach. That is very specific, and that's on purpose. I really wanted to start this process by teaching the people that I know and teaching the things that I know. We'll branch out into other areas at other times, I'm sure. I'm sure as more people have success with this process, we can refine it further and that sort of thing. So my invitation to you is to join us. And so I've had this link on the screen for almost the entire broadcast. It's down below there. I'm going to be putting up some additional information, hopefully today, if I can get this figured out, on well, maybe I shouldn't say for now, just because I'm not sure where it's going to land exactly. But we'll have it up on our website. My hope is that it's going to be practical and won't be abused that I can put this information out there for free, and people will give me feedback. Let me know how to refine it so that I can actually create this into a printed guide down the road. That's my hope. Um, I know that's a lot to put forward and a lot to do for free or whatever, but hey, you know what? I think this is what I'm hoping will be the start of people wanting to be in a deeper relationship with me anyway. And so it's definitely something where it's my pleasure to do for free. Um, the only reason I'm putting boundaries around this initially is because it is very raw and new, and so I do want people to be involved with me directly giving me feedback before it goes too deep into the public. And so I do appreciate you signing up for the email list there. It's hosted by Mailchimp, as you can see, um, but that's just my initial thing. My other platform was having some issues that I think just got sorted out about 20 minutes ago, or that's sorry, about 45 minutes ago, I should say. Right before I started this broadcast, I think we finally figured it out, but I haven't tested it yet, so I can't say. But hopefully, we'll have a much more interesting platform for all of this, where it's actually going to keep track of your days and actually allow you to go through the process anytime, not just during Lent. So that's going to be great. But anyway, that is what's going on. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. But like I said, I would encourage you to sign up for this during Lent. I'm going to keep the enrollment for this open for quite some time, probably right up to the last few days of Lent, actually. But your feedback means so much to me, and I say that on all seriousness and sincerity, that getting your words back of how this was applied well. It doesn't even have to be if something needs to change, but the more input I get from my output, the better I can make my output for someone else. And that means the world to me, to be able to just improve that. I'm not going to be my tendency in my life for far too long was to put out the perfect product the first time and then be devastated when I found out that my perfect product wasn't so perfect. So I do appreciate that feedback. It does make me much better as a writer and creator, and so it serves more deeply, which is probably the bigger, really goal here, is to make sure that I can connect with more and more people the right way, and so I can hone my rough speech into actual, you know, patterns of behavior that are beneficial and not just sound good. So I do hope that's beneficial. Like I said, if there's anything I can do for you in terms of that, just go ahead and let me know. Sign up for the list, and you can just I'll be the emails will, I think, be more or less automatic. I haven't actually set that up yet, mostly because, like I said, this is all kind of just a last minute kind of response. It'll probably be more broadcasts, but I think what I can do is actually set up like a auto responder kind of thing where you join the email list and it'll send you a sequence of emails. That's just a matter of, is that worth the effort, is what I'm going through right now. I think maybe, if nothing else, just pointing you towards a archive, or I might even just put them up on the blog. Whatever works, we will get you all the lessons. So if you join late, that's okay. It's perfectly okay. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I was really okay. That's one of the reasons why I was starting this with 10 days of preparation. It gives you time to catch up if you need to. It gives you some grace, which is something that I need in my life hour by hour. So that's what that is. So if you're feeling, oh, it's too late, Lent has already started, I don't want to start this new thing, it's okay. There's grace here, and the process is easy enough to get caught up on. Even if you're joining during the fasting period itself, those 20 days, it's still pretty easy to get caught up. It might just be more of a challenge because you have to give more up at once, but no matter what, there's a way to get there. So I encourage you to do this with me. I encourage you to give me your feedback, and ultimately, as always in all things I do, I encourage you to have the stance of leaving the world better than you found it. Again, my name is DJ Eshelman. Glad to be with you here, and we will see you certainly next week for another 11 Talents broadcast. But also, one of the things I've been challenged with by more people than I can count at this point. So I'm going to move forward with this, even though it is a little scary. I am going to start some rooms on Clubhouse very soon to start talking through this fasting process and things like that. So you can bring your questions, challenges. Just find me on Clubhouse at DJ Eshelman, I believe is the way to do that. If you're confused about that, you're not alone. But I am on there, and I will be not only finding other groups to be part of as well, to be part of those discussions, but like I said, we'll very much plan on starting our own room. In fact, I don't know when you're watching this, but Thursday, the 18th is a day I'm going to actually schedule a room to go live. I just don't have a time right this moment, but that is something that I am setting as a goal to go live tomorrow, and then try and go live host a room on Clubhouse at least 2 to 3 times during Lent, 2 to 3 times per week during Lent. Sorry. And so again, that'll be part of that email list as well. That'll be where the announcements are coming about, when I'm going live and next and that sort of thing. Even though I totally failed at saying that out today, and I do apologize in advance for that, but hey, you're probably watching the replay at this point anyway. So in any regards, look for that. I know this is all, you're watching this awkward guy kind of stumble through all this, but you know what? That's what's going on. And I'm excited. If you can't tell, I'm very overwhelmed in a lot of ways, scared in some ways, like, how am I going to make this work kind of things, not just logistically, but like in life in general. If it weren't scary, then probably everybody would do things like this. And if everybody had done it, it wouldn't be all that special. Right. So this is living in the calling. So I know there's a way forward. And so that's actually something that I'll be seeking out during this fasting time as well, is more, more guidance and more inspiration. So God speaks to me through other people. So that's why I'm inviting others to speak back to me. So yeah, I'm going to see how many endings I can do for this. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you